Hello everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today, and we would like to also pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name's Flynn and I'm here with the fantastic Ian Haigh. Ian, how are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me back.
Don't roll your eyes when I call you fantastic. You are fantastic and it's great to hang out with you. It's great to be back. We had a great stream on Tuesday as a bit of an introduction into video editing. We're using Premiere Pro. We did on Tuesday and we will again today. So if you missed that, you can follow that up into some more detail, but we'll do a little bit of a recap before we get started. It is a miserable day here in Sydney, pouring with rain.
Absolutely disastrous, yeah.
But very good for your new company, which focuses on foliage.
That's right. It's good for the leaves. The new company, we have got a fictional company, or fictional for the time being anyway, depending on demand, called Leaves on Things. And we created this fictional company so that we would have something to make an ad for Instagram. So on the weekend, when it wasn't pouring with rain, I went out with my daughter and my iPhone. We went and shot some footage of putting leaves on things, came up with a logo, and we're putting together that video now, which will eventually go on Instagram and make us loads of money.
Lots of money. The other type of green that we need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so as I said, you can check that out. And, it's really great, I think, this approach, because it's, you work with lots of, fancy equipment. I've got lots of streaming equipment here and bags of like very expensive stuff. But, what you can do on just a phone is pretty incredible, especially when the output is going to also be a phone, right? Like you don't need to invest a lot of money to get into video editing and to get it out. And to help businesses or to help yourself and things like that. So I really like this approach of just using you're kind of pushing all the DSLRs to the side just to get the iPhone, just to get this working, which anyone 100%. Can do at home.
Yeah, it's like somebody famously said that the best camera is the one that you have with you. And the phone is the thing that I have with me all the time. And it's just amazing, like how much the barrier to entry has dropped over the years. Whereas you used to need to have like loads of money and expensive equipment, like you say. Now, if you've got the phone, if you've got access to Premiere, then you can like create a very high-end ad like the one that we're creating at the moment for Leaves on Things.
Exactly. All right. Well, if you're watching over on YouTube, jump on over to behance.net/live. If you have questions as we're going along, maybe you're graphic designer or illustrator or something and you have some questions about video, we can nerd out here
maybe
together.
You just like leaves, yeah.
Maybe you just love leaves. Let us know your favorite leaf. Drop it in the chat. But should we jump over to the app in question, Premiere Pro?
Come on over. Come on in. It's nice and dry and warm inside. So here we go. We are in Adobe Premiere, and where we left it last time, I've added a few other little clips so that we can get a bit of a head start. Is that we had the introduction here, and I'll just get rid of that transition. We had the introduction where it's just me talking about leaves on things. Then we saw someone putting a leaf on a laptop, a shoe, a monkey, a skateboard, and my daughter's head. And then there was a bit of an outro. So it's looking pretty good, but we can keep adding to that now. One of the things that we're missing is a logo on the end. So first thing I would do here, pretend that wasn't there, get rid of that, and I'll show you how to import that. So just like everything in Premiere, the easiest way to get things into the program is just to drag it into the project manager down here. So just as a quick recap, the project manager is where you put all of your assets. This is the sequence manager or the timeline where you assemble all of those different assets. Up here, you've got a bunch of different tabs, different windows. The one that we're interested in at the moment is called the source. So that if you double click on one of these assets down here, it pops up here and it lets you preview what you're going to edit into the timeline before you actually edit it in. So you can drag it back and forth here without affecting the sequence that you're making down here. And then up here is the program monitor, and that lets you see what you've actually put together in the timeline. So when I drag this blue time scrubber down here, you can actually see that this corresponds to what you're seeing. It's like the stage where you assemble everything. So I'm going to go in here. I'll make myself a bin by clicking this new folder icon here, new bin, and bins are Premiere's name for folders, so you don't get too confused. I'll call this one logo, keep it all nice and tidy. And then when I go in here and find the logo that I created before, Leaves on Things by Ian, and that is a real URL. You can click on it. There's not, I wouldn't recommend clicking on it. There's not much there. But if you want to see the final video that we created, it's on that link. So go and check it out. Yeah.
Sorry, sidebar. What's Netlify.app? What is this?
Oh, that's it's just a fantastic web host. You can actually host things like that's. I host my Ketchup website on there for free.
Oh, really?
And it's super advanced and very cool. So if you're in the business, check it out. It's great. So leavesonthings.netlify.app. The logo that I made, I took a photo of some leaves and made it look like it's coming out of the L. Time for another tutorial sometime. But if I just drag that JPEG into Premiere, I could drag it into the main window, or I could drag it straight into that bin, and it will import it and it'll show up down here. So super easy.
It's wild how important clicking and dragging things in. I remember when there was only like a handful of apps that were doing it, when that was kind of introduced. I think it was a Mac thing originally, and or dragging into the app and then it will open the app and you can drop it in. Now, if there's an app that doesn't allow me to do that and I have to find the file and use the Finder navigation, it drives me insane.
Irrationally angry and just like, why?
Yeah.
Totally with you on that one. Drag and drop is just a game changer. I'm going to drag and drop this one again. So probably what I want to do first, there's a couple of ways, and just to recap, I could move the time scrubber to where I want this logo, so I could move it right to the end, or I could just press the end key on my keyboard and it'll jump straight to the end there. And then I could drag that into there like that, and it'll snap to the time scrubber and line up perfectly. Alternatively, I could put the time scrubber on top of that clip, and we learned this one the other day where if you drag it, I'm dragging it from the project manager over here to the program manager, and then it comes up with a whole bunch. I haven't let go of the mouse button, and you get all of these different options.
That's really cool. I love this one. Such a good one because it's such a hidden little. It's like a hidden UI, a hidden navigation, but once you know that it's there, it's super handy.
Yeah, super handy. I'd love to see more apps implementing this kind of like heads-up display. I think it's really cool. So there's a bunch of different ways you can get in there. And then the final way, if I double-click it get it into the source manager up here, I can then use my in and out points. So if I knew that I wanted the logo to be on screen for, say, exactly 2 seconds, I could put an in point there, move the playhead forward 2 seconds, put an out point in there, and then set an in point basically anywhere, because this is just, there's no duration to it because it's just a still image. And then I'm going to click this button here, which says overwrite, and it will pop that in there, and it's 2 seconds in length. So there's
really cool. Yeah,
a myriad of ways that you can get your footage from the project manager into your timeline.
Can I ask a question on that? Because one of the 10 things that I know how to do in Premiere Pro is to speed up or slow down things. If I need something to be a specific length, like, something says this can only be 30 seconds or 15 seconds or something, rather than trying to manually do it, I'll often create the clip or throw it in Premiere, double click it and change the speed. Can you do that for a static image as well as a video?
You can. I think because there's no definitive duration to a static image, that you can just drag it out to however you want. One thing that it's good to be aware of as well, if you're bringing in loads of bitmaps or static images and you want them all to be a certain duration, then before you import them, you could go into the preferences here, and somewhere in here it's got the default. Is it one of these? Still image default duration. So here under timeline,
cool.
It's got it here under 5 seconds. So if I knew that I was trying to make if they were all too long, for example, I could make it all 1 second. And then every time I import bitmaps or image files, that'll automatically make them 1 second long. So that can be a big time saver as well.
Yep, it would have been a time saver had I known about that when we're putting together the Creative Mornings on-demand videos. So someone would have like 100 slides or something,
kind of manually dragging them in, and then I was manually changing them all. So you're saying I could have just changed the default, dragged them all in, and then scattered them throughout.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That literally would have saved me like a weekend of work.
If you ever find yourself thinking there's got to be an easier way, I reckon there probably is. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And just on that, while we're talking about like speeding things up and slowing things down, and in and out points, if you had like, here's the sort of clip of me doing this introduction. If I set an in point at the beginning and an out point at the end in the source monitor, and then I set an in point and an out point.
My name's
that's much shorter. So we've got an in point up here on the source, one up here, and then an in and out point here that's much shorter than the duration of this video. Then Premiere notices, like, hang on, you've got like, you want to put loads of video into this tiny little space. How do you want me to handle it? So if I click this button here, it pops up a dialog saying fit clip. So there's a bunch of different options. Change clip speed is it'll condense the whole thing and speed it all up. Otherwise, you can ignore the in and out points up here. So very quickly, I could say, so ignore sequence out point. Sequence out point is this one here. So if I said do that, it's just going to put that whole clip in there, aligned to the in point here. If I hit OK, then there's the entire clip. However, if I go undo and hit that one again, overwrite, and choose change clip speed, Premiere will automatically figure out how much it needs to speed up that clip to fill that space. So if I go OK and then press play, you'll see it goes extremely quickly.
Very fast.
Yeah, and the reverse is true as well. So if I put a very short in and out point there, and adjust the in and out point here to be very long, and try to edit it in and say change clip speed, it's going to slow that down a lot. You can see it's probably pretty small on the screen there, but it's saying it's slowed it to 16% of its original speed, so that when I play it back now, I mean, it's probably no one wants to see me at 16%, but still, you get the idea. So that's another way of getting of changing the length, and also getting Premiere to do the mathematics for you.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And you see that a lot on social media as well. Like, you know, obviously some things you want to speed up and some things you want to slow down. So there you go. That's one of the ways you can do it. Very cool.
And just while I think of it as well, if you wanted to have, sometimes you'll see like this effect where something's gone very quickly and it'll go back to normal speed. So you could edit in, so I'll put a in point there and the out point there, and I'm going to do a tiny little, so this will be a quick one, and drop just like we did before. So I'm putting all of this, like loads of video, into a tiny little space, edit that one in and change clip speed, so that will go very quickly. Then go back up here and change this to be my in point, and then out point there, and I'll just drop that in. If you haven't set an in and out point on the on your timeline, it'll just use the time scrubber, so it's just going to make this my in point. So when I edit that one in, what you'll see is it goes very quickly, but then it lines up with the same point. So blah, 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 and then normal speed. Right. So sometimes you wouldn't normally do that with someone speaking, but that's a really cool effect if you've been walking around with your camera on a gimbal or something, and you've gone that sort of super fast and then suddenly goes into normal speed or even slow motion. It's a cool effect. You see it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I see that a lot with like things like, you know, drone shots and stuff like that, like kind of doing a flyby and they'll speed up and slow down, or, you know, someone's in a car and you're filming something, and good way to kind of skip the boring bits and then kind of focus on the interesting stuff.
Exactly. Skipping the boring bits is a good way to think about it. So coming back to where we were, we've put our logo on the end there. It's 2 seconds long. We're really happy and it's looking good. Now, at the moment, it just cuts. It's just a straight out cut from here to here. And that's fine. But what if we could use a transition?
Yay.
Yeah. Transition, star wipes, they're the best. So we'll go up here to the window menu. We've got effects is already open. I'm going to press There we go. That's where I couldn't find it. So I typed Shift 7 to call up the effects menu. And this is where you got like loads of different video effects, and all of your transitions and everything are going to be in here. So if I flip open video transitions, I've installed a few additional ones. So it might look a bit different to yours if you haven't installed any other ones, but there's a whole bunch of cool built-in ones anyway. So let's just flip one over, look up Iris Diamond, for example. So if I wanted to use that, I could just click it, drag it over here, and you can see as I drag where those clips meet, where they're aligned up, where they're butting up next to each other, it recognizes that as a sort of cut point. When I drop the transition on there, then it's automatically going to start that transition. As you can see, I can drag back and forth and get a sense of what that's doing. So a transition is where you've got one clip going to the other clip in a way that isn't just a plain cut.
Right.
One thing to watch out for when you're doing a transition is you need to have enough media on both sides of the transitions. So for example, if I take an example of the skateboarding clip, if I go right to the end of this clip, I've dragged it out. So that's the very end of the media. And I can tell that that's the very end of the media because it's got this tiny, tiny little white triangle in the top right. Similarly, if I drag out the other side, now it has a tiny little white triangle in the top left. So cool. We're seeing the entire clip there. If I then was to use my logo again, so because that's a bitmap, it's infinite in length, there's no really beginning or end. This one doesn't have any triangles, but because this one is footage and it definitely does have a beginning and an end, when I've used the whole clip, it puts up those little indicators to let me know that that's the beginning and the end. There's no more before or after this. So if I drag my diamond onto it now, it's only lighting up one side of the transition because there's actually not enough media to do the whole transition sort of thing. So you kind of need an overlap. And the way to get around that is if I move my cursor to just to the left of where those two are butting up, it changes into this little yellow symbol, which is the ripple edit. I'm going to drag that this way to the left. Now, there's extra media. You can see the little white triangles disappeared. There's extra media that it can use for the transition. When I drag, let's use round. When I drag that over there, now both sides of the transition light up. When I let go, you can see that the transition works correctly.
Nice.
Yeah. You can also edit the transition by just moving over one edge of it, making it longer or shorter. And you can, there we go, it's taking longer now. And when the transition is selected, the effect controls, you can see in here, there's a preview of what it looks like. You can see the duration of it and how much of the transition, every transition has got a bunch of different parameters that you can play with. And those are visible here under the effect controls. And effect controls is also context sensitive. So it depends on what you've got selected in the timeline. So if I select a clip, now the effect controls relate to that clip. So when I select the transition, now the effect controls relate to that.
That's cool. So each different transition might have different, knobs and dials that you can play with, and maybe color selection or duration, or, where the star wipe starts from or something like that. I know this wasn't a star wipe, but you know what I mean.
No, totally. So you've got, like, if there was these ones, I bought these ones a while ago. They've got some really cool film impact. There's a whole world of cool transitions out there. These ones, let's see, impact slice. So if I drag that one to replace the transition, I just drag it straight on top of the old one and it'll just update it. And if I select impact slice, let's see, you can see it's got a completely different set of parameters to play with there. And when I press play, it's
that's pretty cool.
Completely different. Yeah, a different vibe. So you can, once you start to play around, then there's a lot of different ways. And you can completely change, zhuzh up your movie or make it more exciting and so on. There's a whole world out there, and there's a lot of stuff that's freely available as well. So it's just a matter of like jumping on your Google and seeing what's out there.
Well, you know, do you have a particular place that you might look first, or you keep an eye on? I think we mentioned it was Motion Array, if I remember correctly, on Tuesday as like a bit of a resource to kind of find these sorts of things. I'm sure they have plugins. Is there any other like places that people should check out if they want to kind of zhuzh up their video editing stuff?
Zhuzhy.
Yeah, the old zhuzh.
Yeah, for a bit of this, there's a bunch out there, and Motion Array is good. It's a reasonably priced. You get a subscription and you can download a whole lot of stuff. People do make packs available from time to time, and there's a lot of YouTube, sort of resources out there for people who want to make their own too. Also, another one is Red Giant Universe transitions. So Red Giant is a part of Maxon now, who makes Cinema 4D, and they've just got tons of resources for filmmakers. So that's another one that I've got a lot of use out of over the years as well. So it's a bit more expensive, but then the plugins are a bit higher end as well. You've got some fantastic options there.
I think I had an app or something I used for a while from Red Giant years and years ago. Something. Yep. Aware of that. Well, that's cool. There you go. Something to check out.
They've been around for a while. They make some very cool stuff. But transitions. So once you get hooked on transitions, there's no coming back. They are great. So what did we decide on that one? I think maybe one of those iris ones are pretty cool. Or why don't we use one of those? So we'll just say iris, diamond, look pretty good. So that can be our transition to go from there into the leaves on things. And then at the very beginning, rather than starting on black like that, we'll just use the simple, venerable cross dissolve, which will just take us, that's got, I don't know if you can see, but it's got a little blue outline around it there. That means it's my default transition. So that if I had a edit point selected and then I typed Shift D, it'll just automatically put that one on there. So that's handy, because if you're trying to put loads of transitions on a whole bunch at once, I can type Shift D, and now these are all cross dissolves. So,
oh, cool.
And if I wanted to make them all, say, the iris that we were using at the end, choose that one. I could say, okay, iris, or use round. I right click on that, set selected as default transition. And I'm just going to select all of those edit points by holding down my command key, which I think would probably be the control key on Windows, dragging a box over them. And instead of selecting the clips like that, it's selecting the edit points between the clips.
Right. Now, is that because you have the effect already selected? Like, what dictates that it selects those transition points?
Oh, just holding down the command key.
Okay, holding down command key. Yep, cool. Got it. Yeah,
and I think that the analog would be control on Windows if you're on a PC. So holding that one, it'll select those all turn red. If I type Shift D for dog now, then it's put in an iris transition instead of a cross dissolve on all of them. I mean, I love that so much. I think that looks so good.
Why not leave?
Why don't we just leave it like that?
That's done.
Right.
That's done. So transitions, like your approach to transitions, I guess it feels like one of those things that could be obviously really overdone, like really be quite distracting, maybe in the case of where we're at the moment. So like you had cross dissolve as like your default one. Is that because it is one of those things where you really don't want to overdo it, and cross dissolve is often the right answer?
You're exactly right. That I think less can be more. Sometimes more can be more. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. So for a lot of clients, because you've got this huge toolkit of transitions and so on, doesn't necessarily mean you need to use all of them all the time. And like you say, it can distract from what you're trying to achieve. So often I will reach for cross dissolve just to go from a simple fade in. So in this instance, I could just drop a cross dissolve on the very beginning of that clip, and then it'll go just come in from black like that. So nice and easy. Another one that I find elegant and not overused is just dip to black or dip to white, which just effectively turns down the, there we go. So then it goes between, just quite elegant, quite nice.
Right.
But depending on the type of video, I think that the audience for Leaves on Things would be a huge fan of the round iris transition. I don't know why, I just have that feeling. And so I think we should leave that one on. But then, just when you think you go, oh yeah, I know where they're going with this, it's a diamond. So there's no end to the variety.
Got to keep the audience on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, these people falling off their seat.
Here comes Diamond.
Here comes Diamond.
I would have thought maybe the page turn, that was page turn would be almost like turning a new leaf or something.
Oh, that's nice. That really ties in with the whole leaf thing. I've got to talk to my team and get back to you on that.
All right.
Yeah, leaves.
There we go.
See where you're going with it. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some pretty sweet transitions happening. We're feeling confident with that one. I've got a cross dissolve at the front. It's not overdone. It's just perfect, just right. And now, so there's a bit of me talking at the beginning and the end, but what we need is music. So for this one, we're going to use, delete that just to prove that it wasn't nothing up my sleeves. So there's, again, coming back to Motion Array, they've got a whole bunch of different, options there for you, like soundtracks and so on, if you do the subscription. I'm going to drop in this one called Explore Together. I think we'll just use the main one. I'll drag that in there. Okay, cool. It's just a WAV file, and then I'll drag that onto this folder to automatically put it into a new bin and call it music. All right. So you could just drag that one straight in there. As you can see, the music is way, 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 way longer than our video. So this is a good place to use 3-point editing, because I kind of have a pretty good idea that I want to use the end of the music to sort of line up with the end of the video.
Right.
So in this instance, that I can sort of say something like, all right, I will set my out point here, right near the end of the soundtrack, and I will set an out point here, quite near the end of the video. So that out point is going to line up with that out point there. And I'm also going to set tap here on this is the source patching. So that's the destination of the track that I'm interested in. I could put it right underneath, but I'll put it in this one since it's a bit bigger. It's already been expanded. And then when I click this button overwrite, it's automatically put this near the end of the track. If I hadn't bothered setting all of those points up, then what you'd end up with is what we saw before, where you'd need to go here and trim it and so on. If you've got a good sense of what you're trying to do ahead of time, then you can set up your in points and your out points, and it will just come into the right place. You can fine tune that later, so I can see that looks like, just looking at the waveform, it looks like I'd sort of want to finish it just there, and maybe drag the logo out a little bit so they line up. And also then put the default transition on here, which will just fade it out nicely. Again, that's Shift-D, just to put the default on. And I'll do the same at the beginning. So Shift-D. Now I just wanted to blow anyone's head off. There's a thin white line here, which is set to the volume. So I'll just pull that down a little bit so that it's not too loud to begin with. And if I play that back, we should be able to hear what it sounds like.
Hi, my name's Ian, and I put leaves on things.
And just to preview the end, let's see if that sounds okay. Pretty about right, I reckon.
That's a banger, yeah.
Timing wise, it's a banger. Yep, that's a banger. So another cool thing about Premiere is that it makes a lot of these, the fiddly little things easy. Yeah. And in this instance, they've got this cool feature called Essential Sound. So I've just chosen Essential Sound from my window menu up here, and it's popped up this window. What we want to do is just tell Premiere what elements on the timeline are serving what purpose. So in this instance, if I select this, it'll change the Essential Sound panel. I've already chosen this to be dialogue. If I hadn't already done that, it would just come up and it would say, what sort of audio do you have selected down here? And I can say, well, this is dialogue. This is where I'm talking. And do the same thing over here, which I've already done. Balanced male voice. I'll I'll have you note that it says balanced male voice. And down here, I've got, this is the music. So I've just recorded that one. I choose music. And now it's, I can automatically have Premiere do the ducking. And the ducking is where Premiere will automatically lower the volume of the music when I'm speaking and bring the volume back up again when I'm not speaking. So that's what you hear every time you're watching a documentary or anything like that, Drive to Survive. You've got music going behind, someone starts talking, the music comes down and you can hear what they're saying, and then the music comes back up when they're finished talking. That's ducking. And
when it's done wrong, it is jarring. There's a documentary I'm listening to. It's quite old, which is probably why it was all probably manually done, but like a World War II or something like that kind of documentary style thing, and it has the person talking and then the music just comes on straight away, and listening to it as I'm like sort of falling asleep, and then there'll be someone speaking very calm, very slowly, and and that's what happened, blah blah blah, and then music like do 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 and then it just for about 2 seconds, and then it goes baes to the next person talking. And it's so jarring. So it's quite an art, I think, to get it right.
That doesn't sound like good. Good audio shouldn't draw attention to itself. That sounds like bad. That sounds jarring.
It's not much fun.
Not much fun at all. So fortunately, Adobe have given us the tools to do this easily in a non-jarring way. If I now that I've tagged these blue clips as dialogue and I've tagged this green clip as music, I can just click on the music, and I'm going to, right here you've got, I'll turn on the ducking switch in the Essential Sound panel, turn that on, and then you can play around with these settings here, like how quiet do you want it to go. Duck against, it's effectively like saying everything that I've designated as dialogue. So Premiere will look at what the timeline and sort of go, okay, well I've been told that that's dialogue, so I need to be able to hear that. So I'm going to bring the music down here and over here as well. So generate keyframes. If let's just try that one out and see what happens. And you can see very quickly, I'll just make that a bit bigger, that it's put in keyframes here and here, here and here, and here and here. So it's automatically figured out where it needs to bring the audio
that's great.
down.
We can see it a lot easier now. Okay, cool. That's really interesting. It's good to see that. And so I assume that you can also edit it manually yourself if you're like, I want it to fade in a bit faster or take a bit longer or something like that.
Correct. And you can, by playing around with those parameters. So if I just bring that one up again, so I'll make that a bit bigger. So hopefully that's visible, and I've still got my ducking controls down here. So you can see the how quick the fades are is how steep that line is. So that if I was going to go really fast, so let's say 172 milliseconds and press generate keyframes, then you're going to see suddenly that is going to come in really quickly, and it's going to fade in much faster. So we could actually have a listen to how that sounds, and just reset that workspace. Okay, so if I play that back.
Hi, my name's Ian, and I put leaves on things. Why not leave us a message today?
So that actually works pretty well, I think, as far as very quick, because it's a quick video, right? And so having it come in and out really quickly is not necessarily a bad thing. You can also how much the ducking is, like how quiet you want it to go. So if that was, you want it to be even quieter, then I could turn up that volume and turn up this slider. And when I press generate keyframes, you can see it's brought down when it's competing with the dialogue, it's going to be even quieter still.
Right.
So, and effectively the sensitivity is like how loud does the dialogue have to be before it actually starts ducking.
Yeah.
So if if there was a little bit of in this clip here, there's a little bit of noise there, but I'm not really saying anything. So if the sensitivity was very, 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 very high, and then I tried to duck it, then it might there. So it's actually trying to compensate for that very tiny little bit of, it's not really speech. So that's too sensitive, and it's brought the ducking up too far, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I go back to where it was, which is about 6 or so, press generate keyframes, brings it back in, and that looks about right to me. So it's a very, very handy, especially this is only a 15-second video, so we could have done that manually. But if you are doing it by hand over a longer period of time, you've got a lot of audio clips, like you're making a documentary or something like that, then the ducking tool is invaluable. And you can also use it, while I think of it, if I've got those two selected there, the dialogue you can turn on, it's got a whole bunch of presets, so that I can say, clean up noisy dialogue, for example. So it's got a preset that will automatically add a bunch of features in here. So around balanced male voice is what we had it on. It's gonna use the equalizer to bring out some of make the audio sound a bit brighter. It's gonna do a bit of compression on it as well, so that there's not too much variation between the loud parts of the speech and the quiet parts of the speech. And so it takes a lot of the kind of boring or very technical steps away from you, and it just packages it in an easy to use way.
That's really cool. So that's something you could play around with, those presets, if you might be in a bit of background noise, or if you're in a bit of an echoey room, maybe you were just filming it on your phone, as we were talking about before. You don't have a fancy microphone and things like that. There could be some options in there to make it sound just much better. Yeah,
way, way, way better. And the audio is just such a crucial part of the whole process. I think, as viewers, we can tolerate watching bad video, but no one can tolerate listening to bad audio. So
right.
if it's something has been recorded poorly, or there's lots of wind or static, or if the volume is too high and it's clipping, it sounds horrible. And it's just no. But we can tolerate a lot in terms of video, but the audio is crucial. So yeah, if you're able to rescue it using Essential Sound, then I reckon it's definitely worthwhile spending a bit of time playing around.
Yeah, spent many years trying to get podcasts to sound good that were recorded out, in a back room at a conference or something like that. And it's definitely difficult. But yeah, you'll notice when the audio is really, really good, just a lot more people will listen to the whole thing.
I can only imagine how you must cringe listening to very early episodes of ADR.
I could never do it. The worst thing would be when someone says, hey, I just, just discovered this podcast and I'm starting from scratch. I'm like, oh, don't get it. Start from episode 50 onwards, when we invested in better microphones and recorded in a soundproof room and stuff. Yep. The first 20 were recorded on USB headphones and a MacBook Air and in a wooden room. It's terrible.
A rite of passage for new podcasters.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, so we've got this is looking pretty sweet now. We've got our intro here, we've got our outro, we've got all our sweet transitions, and we've even got some music in there now. One thing that I had on the other version, which was just some titles, some very, very simple titles to put on here, just to kind of indicate what we're looking at, in case it wasn't obvious. So for that, we've just been using Essential Sound. So now we could jump over to Essential Graphics. So you've got a bunch of, this is again, Adobe have tried to make it as easy as possible for you to, find content, whether it's motion graphics templates or titles and so on. You've got Adobe stock built in here as well. So some of these, there's some free stuff, but there's also some stuff that you can purchase, and you can make your own. So one thing that we did touch on Tuesday was these tools over here. One of the tools is the type tool, which creates type. If I click on the T over here,
you guessed it.
Yeah, you guessed it. They like to make things intuitive. If I click straight on the stage up here, I get a cursor. I'm going to type shoot
show
all varieties show. It's kind of like we're making a show. And then here you go, I can drag that around. You can see it's actually made an element on top of everything else over here. So that behaves just like all these other clips. So I could drag that around. I could let's use the razor blade. That's one we haven't seen yet. So get the razor. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to chop that there, and I'm going to delete the rest. And now the shoe title only appears over the shoe. And it goes away again. Yeah.
Does it get wiped out by the transition, or does it stay during the transition?
It's a good question. So these transitions they only apply to the clips that they're stuck to, if you like. So the transitions down here, the iris transitions go, as you can sort of see, iris transition goes through here, and then the shoe type just appears. So if I wanted to have a transition on the shoe, I would need to I could nest these, which might be a little too much for our purposes, and then put an iris transition on the nested clip.
And nesting is just kind of like grouping, like if you're coming from a different app, more or less. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, you can sort of make a little subcomp, sort of like a pre-comp in After Effects. Alternatively, I will go in here. I can just, with that selected, press Shift D. It's going to put on that's not what I want. It's dip to black was the default. So I'm going to go in here to Effects, just make it a cross dissolve. I'm going to right click on that and go Set Selected as Default. And now when I select it, it's put a cross dissolve on there. It's actually put a cross dissolve at both ends, and it's put a massive one on the end of this one and a tiny one at the beginning. And I suspect that's because it's not long enough for the default duration. If I go into preferences, back to where we were before under timeline. So we've got video transition, default duration, 25 frames, which is 1 second, roughly. I think we're working in 30 frames. So choose that to say maybe 0.2 of a second, something like that. And now when I press Shift D, they're much shorter. And you can see if I play that back, it fades in and fades out really nicely. Whoa, stop. Keep pressing the space bar. So if I go here and press, there we go. So it fades in, it fades out. That looks pretty saucy, I reckon.
Pretty schmick.
Why not leave us a message today?
I beg your pardon.
When we're talking about audio and the quality of audio, Johanna in chat was saying that some of the D&D podcasts I listen to have done disclaimers for exactly this reason, letting listeners know when the audio improves. Yeah, I think they do that in Critical Role, like the original campaign. Their first 20 episodes or something is very hard to listen to.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like very difficult. But it's a story-led campaign. It's 4 hours of content each week, and you got 20 episodes of that. So if you just jump in when the audio improves, you're gonna miss a lot of the beginning of that story. But it was too much for me. I couldn't go back and listen to the first campaign as much as I love Critical Role.
Right. Yeah.
Because I was just like, oh man. But that's also very challenging. They're in a room. There's about 6 to 8 people in there, and you're trying to capture everyone's microphone very, very well. Very difficult thing to do.
Very difficult thing to do. So I've got a mic that I use if we're shooting video, but if the budget allows, I will always get a professional sound recordist to come in and take care of the audio, because it's just really nice to have an expert come and handle that. They hear things in a way that us mortals don't. Like, we're about to start a shoot, and the audio guy will be like, "Hey," and he can hear. I don't know what he's listening to. He can hear something somewhere in a different suburb. But he's just like, "No, there's a dog." Okay, no, we're good now. And it's like, "Oh my god, that's amazing." So they experience life differently, but very valuable people to have around.
I love it. I'd love to work with an audio professional. That would be great. I'd learn so much.
It's the best. It's the best. And then you won't want to do it any other way.
Yeah. So, and just letting you know in chat as well, we've got about 10 minutes left today.
10 minutes left. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
It's flown by.
It really has flown. Okay, so imagine that we've done all of these sweet titles on here. The one thing that I just wanted to demonstrate as well is, like, with the essential graphics panel, you can see nothing selected, so it's not showing me anything. But if I click on that title that we made before, I'll just pop it up there, and now it shows me the these are the, broadly speaking, the kind of like the properties of the clip that I've got selected. And then if I click on this up here, this is the kind of that will get me more properties to do with the type. So you can have a whole bunch of different elements. You can select them individually and then edit them individually. So if you click on this and you say, well, hang on, I want to change the font, but I don't see anything to do with the font here, click on the little T up there and it will show you all of these other properties that you can edit. So you can even have styles like InDesign. It's amazing. So I'll go in here, I'm going to put in, this is the Ketchup font, basic commercial. Maybe let's make that bold and then change it to, well, it's cool. Love doing this. Doing the background automatically changes the size of the background, and then we'll just center it in the window. Move it down. So you've got,
wow, there are a lot of options in here I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Look, I mean, you've got like all of the good stuff is in there, is really in here. You can even superscript and subscript round the corners of your little box. If I don't know if that's fashionable at the moment or not, but if you wanted to, you could.
I think it's very like in vogue with a lot of like social media, right? Like round corners seem to be bee's knees at the moment.
I don't pretend to be able to keep up. Like I just feel like if I feel like rounding corners today, then I'm going to do it. I'm not going to check whether it's okay. Yeah,
I'm going to check with your kids. What do you think? No. What do you think, guys?
Exactly. Yeah, rounded corners are probably safer if you think about it. You're not going to injure yourself on rounded corners.
That's true.
So there we go. That's looking pretty cool. And now what we want to do is get this into some format where we can actually upload it somewhere, right? We're pretty happy with how it's all looking. We've got it to a duration that we think will be acceptable. And now it's just a matter of like putting it somewhere that we can, making it into a movie file. And you hit save. It's always a good idea to save everything before exporting. And then I'm going to go up to the file menu. And again, this is one of those things where I can't find something because I use the keyboard shortcut. Go to the file menu, go to export, and then go media, while this window is selected here. And then it comes up with this. This is your kind of standard export window for Premiere. It's got a lot of power here. Right now, it's kind of, let's change the format. So we're going to go to H.264, which is very standard for YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. It's probably the one that you see the most. That's effectively
that was going to be my. Sorry to interrupt. That was going to be my question. There's a lot of options there, and you can be really overwhelmed with this sort of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, what's the traditional kind of go-to and everything? And H.264. I mean, that's pretty much what I use for everything. Unless something doesn't work, I'll do H.264 first, and if something 100%. Looks wrong, I'll start researching and go, okay, hang on, why isn't this working? Because usually it does for me. So yeah, H.264 is a good go-to.
H.264 is basically like standard. Now, I would argue it's a kind of a de facto standard. 99 times out of 100, H.264 is all you need. It's certainly like, because I'm a bit of an old timer, I can tell you that it didn't used to be this easy. There used to be so many different Sorensen and 3i DivX and all these kind of weird and wonderful compressors and so on. And they
DivX, I remember that one. Yeah,
and they often didn't talk to each other as well. And it was actually one of the best things about YouTube before it became this kind of Google juggernaut, was that you could upload anything at YouTube, and then it would unscramble it and put it into a format that everyone could view. And I just remember being like, that finally someone has cracked that particular problem, and it was a good day. It was a Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, you've got that. The anniversary comes around once a year, and you have a little celebration at home.
My kids are like, "Why are we doing this, Dad?"
I remember DivX, like if you had to have it installed, like DivX or something, it installed on whatever device that you wanted to play the video, regardless of. Anyway, the dark ages. Okay, we've only got about 5 minutes left. I'll shut up. Let's get back to it.
Yeah, we can do this another time. So, so format H.264, you can probably ignore pretty much everything else. And then fortunately, we've got all of these great presets here. You can make your own. There's a whole bunch up here that I've made for myself. All these ones are built in so that if you're following along at home, your menu should look a lot like everything from here down. So for a lot of people, you want to just kind of choose, like here, Twitter 640 by 640. So we know that that's going to be square. If I did choose one like Vimeo, let's see, YouTube 1080p full HD. So I choose that, and then it's like, it's got these pillar boxes left and right on there. You can just go into the video tab, and I'm just going to say match source. Boom.
That's the magic button, isn't it? Like match source. I find I use that quite a lot.
Right. Yeah. Match source just means I want you to look at what I'm trying to output. I want you to match that, please. So it's automatically typed in the dimensions of my timeline here, and the frame rate and everything. So you can still override them if you wanted to come in here and do something weird, or turn off proportion, and you can go in there. But if you get a bit stuck, you've chosen again. If I choose, obviously YouTube is super common. So if I chose YouTube, and then I said under the video tab, match source, and then it'll just square it up for me because I'm trying to export a square video. Gives you a whole bunch of other options. You might need them, you might not. But it's always like, if you've got a bit of time and energy, it's good to have a little dig around and at least see what's up there, because it might like trigger a bit of a memory or something that you might need later on down the track, and you think, I know where I've seen that. So in this instance, I think everything else is looking pretty cool. And down here it says estimated file size 35 megabytes. Good to keep an eye on that one as well, because if the estimated file size is being measured in gigabytes or terabytes, then you might want to go back and check your settings. In this instance, because it's only a 17-second video, 35 megabytes is pretty decent. That's not out of the question for something this long. And if you want to put it in a particular folder, just click on the output up name up there. It's going to, hovering over it tells you where it's going to save it to. I'm going to click on there, and then let's just put it on the desktop for now. I'll hit save, and now when I hover over it, you can see that it's just changed to the desktop. And then finally, I've got the highlighted button here is Q, and that will send it off to a different program, Adobe Media Exporter. So if you had a whole bunch of videos you wanted to
Media encoder, isn't it?
What did I say? Exporter. Encoder, I beg your pardon. Adobe Media Encoder. So that would, you could queue up a whole bunch of, arbitrary number of movies, all with different settings, and then hit go, and then, go and chuck a frisbee around or have a shower or something, and then come back later when it's all done. In this instance, I'm just going to press export, which will not fire up Adobe Media Encoder, and it will just basically encode it straight from Premiere, which for our purposes is totally fine. So
yeah.
Adobe Media Encoder is great when you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you need to export, but I often find myself just doing it straight out of Premiere because I don't need to queue it all up.
Yeah.
And then here is the final product. I'll just mute it and hit play. And as you can see, I don't know if I can improve on that.
It's pretty perfect.
Yeah, pretty perfect. The other thing that you might want to do, very quickly if we've got time.
We've got about 1 minute left. 1
minute is that putting captions on things is really good in this day and age. And you've got this up here under sequence, there's this one called auto transcribe sequence. If I select that, it will take your audio, send it off to Adobe. They'll figure out what you've said, and then come back and you can automatically generate captions. It's super handy and super fast. And I did create one. Here's one that I did earlier. No, I won't be able to find it now. But yeah, you can just basically have your closed captions. You can burn them in, or you can have a closed caption separate file, and it just makes it more accessible and better for your audience.
Oh, very cool. And when you say it sends over to Adobe, it's Adobe Sensei figures it out and then sends it back. It just takes a bit of time to render or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't. This one, it was only 17 seconds. And when I did it before, there were only 2 lines of dialogue, but the whole thing was over in less than a minute. And yeah, I use this one all the time, and it's super, super handy. You might need to, because it is artificial intelligence, you might need to tweak it to get it exactly right.
Yeah.
It does, 90 5% of the time, it's absolutely perfect. So yeah,
that's
very
awesome.
worthwhile.
We're going to have to leave it there so we don't get cut off. Thank you everyone for watching. Check out part 1 if you haven't seen that. If you're watching on demand, you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at behance.net/live. Ian, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye everyone.